All right, there we go. We are live, baby. Charlie Marlow, the great Cole Bartemes. And of course, the second we go live, I get a call that right there. Cole, how you doing, buddy? Is that a Pirates shirt or is that like a Hawaiian shirt you got going?
Yeah, I got a work opposite of my camera right now. I don't know which one. There we go. I got the. This was one of the best giveaways any stadium has ever had. They had a Hawaiian giveaway night, and it's very breathable, which is great for St. Louis summers. I'll tell you that much.
Love it. Okay, so look, man, we already have 13 people watching, and we just started. Plus, we have the chat going, so a lot of people already jumping in. I got to tell people on X that we're live here. Colton Carragher asks you, Cole, is the cat going to let Cole talk today? What do you think about that?
Yes, he will be. Yes, he will because he's not on. Although if he were here, he wouldn't. Colton in Iowa, loyal listener of the show, and now he's here with us. I appreciate him.
And by the way, if any special guests, I didn't invite anybody, but if any special guests want to come on, like a cat, like a Cam Whitener, Brendan, anybody, as we go here, we have about an hour, but just text me, guys, and I can send you an invite. But I wanted this to be mostly about Cole, and we'll get to you, Cole, and your future plans, which I feel like you haven't really announced yet. I know you can't tell everything about it, but first, let's just get into the Cardinals.
I can tell 90% of it.
Okay, there you go. Give me your take. Yeah, we can go till about 11:30 or so. I actually randomly have a golf lesson. First golf lesson I'm ever going to have in my entire life coming up.
Is it your wife teaching you?
Noon. No. She probably could, but it's actually like a professional. I mean, she's good, but I'm going to have like a true club pro.
She's just collegiate. That doesn't count.
I think, but also I think she can play sometimes. I mean, this guy is actually a teacher. So, okay, let's start with this while I let everybody know that we're on. Give me your take on last night's game. You had to be pretty ticked, Cole, when your Buccos lose the Paul Skenes game.
Yeah, I think it was one of the most disappointing games that probably has ever taken place in the 23 and a half years inside of PNC Park. I mean, I wanted to go really yeah, because you are in a race. It's against a division rival. Playoff races in PNC Park don't happen very often. So with the Pirates schedule coming up, you got the Cardinals. You got two series with the Diamondbacks coming up who are right there in between both of them. You got two series with the Padres who are coming up right in between both of them. And then sandwiched in there in the mix are the Astros, who are division leader, and the Dodgers, who are division leader. So these next 7 series, including this Cardinal series, are enormous for the Pirates. And you can't be giving away games like that when Paul Skenes is going into the 9th inning. I know that knowing what we know now, there's a little bit of discussion about whether or not that was the right decision to let him go. But the offense just gave you nothing. And this has kind of been emblematic of what's been going on with the Pirates all season long, is they'll have a bunch of games where they barely score, and then everybody will hit home runs on the exact same day and burn up all of their runs and put up a 9 spot eventually. So those days are a lot of fun, but the other 5 days in between those days aren't. And Paul Skenes giving you his best stuff, Cardinals barely being able to touch him. Man, that's just one that you can't give away. And Pirates fans are showing up to the ballpark for this guy. And I'm pretty sure the Pirates are rigging this too by fixing as many starts as they can with him at home so they can get that with that attendance. I'm pretty sure they're doing that because they're not announcing his starts until like the very last second possible. And they all seem to be at home in the first or second game of a series. So I think they're kind of juicing the home stats with the home attendance there. But Pittsburgh Pirates fans are showing up for this guy, and they're showing up for this team. I cannot believe – I think they're still above 500. They should be one game above, if I recall correctly. I can't believe how competitive they've been. I don't necessarily buy them as a team, but if you're this far into the season and you've still got it, and the trade deadline's in about a week, then, man, you can't be giving away a game like that last night when the Cardinals could barely touch that guy. I mean, you just can't. And Lance Lynn's on the other side. Like, that dude is the worst okay pitcher ever. Like, and if there's somebody else who better fits that definition, I don't even want to know about it because I'm very happy giving it to Lance Lynn. That dude gives up so much traffic on the base pass and finds a way to get out of it. That was so frustrating last night.
Okay, but he's also a battler. You have to give him that. Now, early in the season, he was getting out of every single bases loaded jam. I'm talking about Lance Lynn. You knew that ERA was going to creep up. I know you have that bet with Cat. What is it? It has to be
I got
over 4.5 for you.
Yes, and I'm not sure that he's eclipsed 4.5 yet this season. He's gotten really close. He got 4.48 one time. That's the closest we've been. I think he texted me yesterday 4.17. I'd have to check my
Okay.
messages, but Cat did give me a text as soon as he got pulled.
Sure. And also, look, Lance Lynn was basically kind of living around a 4 ERA till he had that horrible outing, which jacked it up. Now, I'm not a big semantics guy, even though on the great Hot Take Central, which we all miss, we always like to get into arguments strictly on semantics. But you said a couple times the Pirates gave that game away. And I don't think it's fair to say that. I understand, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, you used the wrong word. But look, Paul Skenes is really, really good. But that was a really close game. It was a really well played pitchers duel. If the Pirates would have won, if the Cardinals would have won, I don't think either team gave that game away. It was just a good, well played game. Cardinals came out on top. You got to give Alec Burleson credit also for basically turning that ball around. I guess what was it, 99, 100 miles an hour against one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah, I guess in order to give a game away, you had to have had a lead at some point, which I don't think they did. And but my overarching point is that the offense it was a wasteful game. Maybe they didn't give it away, but they wasted one. They wasted a good opportunity. And as far as the Alec Burleson about goes, having him 0-2, I was really, really confident that he was going to strike him out. And then he threw him a strike on the third pitch, 0-2. And look, man, when you have over 100 pitches, you're probably not in the mood to waste pitches because you only have so much energy left. I get it. But when I saw that third pitch was going to be in the strike zone, I'm just like, you're throwing him strikes, man. He's watching. He's going to adjust at some point. And lo and behold, I don't know how he pulled a ball in the outside corner of the plate, but he did. But I don't know. I was worried that he wasn't mixing it up enough by, working around the zone, even wasting a pitch. But like I said, you're 103, 104 pitches into the game. Pitchers aren't probably being very wasteful. But I don't think it was a bad decision to send him out there. He was awesome and just really, really frustrating day offensively from the Pirates. And if you're on the other side of things with the Cardinals, then I should probably check their upcoming schedule to see who they have in the next handful of series. But that's definitely one that they needed because they're all in the exact same place. They're all sandwiched together. So I got to think the Cardinals fans were pretty pleased. Now, I will say this too, is that I'm a believer that if you get 2 out of 3, what much do you have to complain about? Because I'm like teams just win, and you could argue that the Pirates shouldn't have won the first game. So maybe a BS for BS trade. So if the Pirates win today, which I'm not so sure that they will, because Martin Perez has been getting lit up recently since he's come back from injury. But if they win today, you take 2 out of 3. Hey, you did about as good as you could have been. I don't expect sweeps in baseball. The White Sox they've gotten 35 wins against somebody. Team just win. That's just how it goes. So you take 2 out of 3 today, I'll calm down. But I am really on my toes today.
Love it. Love it. All right. This live stream brought to you by Triad Bank. You see the beautiful logo up there above Cole's beautiful hair. We'll get into that because people are asking about the hair. Who was it? Dan says, is Cole perming his hair? And we will get to baseball, but I saw that you tweeted out, is this called the broccoli cut? And now it's really popular with teenagers. And is it really expensive? Because I need a haircut. My haircut costs $20. I go to that Great Clips right by where 590 used to be.
So I'm there right now. I'm in 590.
Oh, you're at 590?
Yeah. I trusted the Wi-Fi here. Perhaps. I mean, my key fob worked. So that's good, but there's been like a beep every couple minutes, and so I had to come into the producer's studio just to block out that sound. I don't know.
Okay.
The cops aren't here.
No, you're good.
But I trusted this Wi-Fi better than my home, and you know good and well about that.
Yeah, I hear you. No, there are a couple times. So my daughter will go to that. Actually, both my kids now. I shouldn't tell everybody what they do, but they go to that Master Kim studio, and every once in a while, if I'm getting my hair cut or I'm dropping them off, I would go into 590 on the weekend, and then I would always forget to put the code in quick enough, so the alarm would always go off. So I apologize to Dave Zobrist, but then I would call him and Jim Hewer. It was a total accident. I was just trying to use the bathroom. But the broccoli haircut, are those expensive?
About $40. So depending on where you get your haircut, yes, but I get it like I basically just start it bald and then fade it up, so that way I have multiple months to grow it out before it's objectionable, so that I can kind of skip a haircut in between. So I think the last 2 times I got my haircut were like 3 months apart. And I mean, I was kind of dragging it out, but this is not my best. This is just I just wet it, I dried it, and it's still a little bit wet, and then just kind of let it find itself. The cool thing is I've gotten to the point where I think it looks okay messy. You know, if you
Sure.
don't like the haircut, you don't like the haircut. But letting the curls go, I have had curly hair my entire life and never knew how to manage it. And when I was a kid, my parents always decided my haircuts for me. So it was in college where I was experimenting with hair and did not manage it well. So I had an afro my freshman year of college and then went back to the shortcuts. But now I'm seeing everybody else pull off the Euro trash style, and I liked it. And so I'm stealing it. Well, I'm not stealing it because everybody's stealing off each other, but I'm borrowing it. And I do not expect people who are older and older generations than me to like it. But hey, people my age like it.
There you go. Okay, a lot of people coming in. Get your comments, questions for Cole. Juan Garcia says, Cole here. Colby Sports. Hello, boys. Somebody says, what? Juan Garcia, I'm just here for the drops. Unfortunately, no drops on the live stream.
Much like the
my
radio
guy,
show.
Yes. My guy, Ken, what a feeling, a premium member here on YouTube, says Biscuit has some quick hands. And we're going to get into a lot of Cardinals talking Pirates. Like, we got another, 45 minutes here. So I'm curious, though. The whole deal with the Burleson, with the ear,
I was about to
and
say
everybody
that.
said it was a Trump thing. Okay.
That's
just so everybody knows.
Yes, it
hold
is.
On. Okay, hold on. I just want everybody to know. I try to be 100% honest. Sometimes, like, the weekend will go by. I got a lot going on. I'm not able to really lock into the games. I watched a ton of the game yesterday and listened to a ton on the radio while I was working out, and the previous Pirates game. So the argument about the Burleson with the DJ Burley biscuit, do you think that's total BS?
Yes.
It is.
Oh my goodness. DJs don't put a fist in the air. I get the whole like cover up with the headphones thing, but if you're gonna do it, you're gonna like pump your fist. You're not just gonna hold your fist in the air. And there's a video of Lars Newpar. I think he had a home run in Atlanta or something like that. And as he's rounding second base, he does the celebration. And I'm referencing a video I saw on Twitter. So it's a specific home run if you saw him trotting around second base, where he put his hand over his ear and he looked like he was ducking. So,
really?
Look, and I'm convinced any media member who, and I know why they're doing it because it's content, and we're all W's for content. I'll keep it clean. But anyone tweeting out like Alec Burleson said this, Matt Carpenter said that. I mean, come on, especially if you're like a young reporter and you should be able to parse through inside jokes because you're supposed to still have a personality left. Anybody reporting this is just reporting this for their own content, for their pages. Everybody can see through this. This is 100%. I'm not saying it's a tribute to Trump because I saw somebody on Twitter say that too. Somebody went back at Derek Gould and said, come on, Gould, they're honoring Trump. I don't think they're honoring him. I think it's just a meme. I think it's just something in pop culture. They are 100% using it. And I will defend Matt Carpenter here. He said they're not making a political statement. I don't think they are. But, hey, if who needed Lance Lynn and who needed Matt Carpenter, who needed all this leadership when clearly Miles Michaelis is already a leader on that team starting these celebrations?
Sure. By the way, I find it funny. And the reason I don't have a take on this is because what I said, which is I didn't watch a ton of the games the last week where I can know exactly when this started. First of all, I just find it hilarious. And we'll talk about Keith Olbermann. Somebody here on the chat, Endless Equinox says, wonder if Charlie will discuss the rambling left nut who called the Cardinals a bunch of Nazis, LOL. That's Keith Olbermann. One of the reasons I got into TV was watching SportsCenter, Keith Olbermann, Dan Patrick back in the day. But here's what I find funny about this. Look, you don't have to be a Trumper or a Republican just to honor and respect and acknowledge that a former president was shot at. So even if it is acknowledging Trump, which the only reason I don't know is because I haven't paid that close of attention of when it actually started. You shouldn't have to apologize for that. It's not even really a political statement. And the dude for the Rays that, he hits the double and he goes, fight, fight, fight. Like, you shouldn't have to apologize for that. Like, I don't even care if you vote for Trump, Kamala, whoever the hell RFK Jr. it's going to be. Like, you're allowed to have fun. You're allowed, even if you're allowed to protest. Like, I never really get mad when these athletes do that. The fact that if they really did it for Trump or acknowledging the assassination attempt, which is fine, by the way, and then they had to walk it back, to me, that's worse. Just say, hey, he was a former president. He got shot. We thought it was cool the way he stood up with the blood, with the ear, and went fight, fight, fight. That's cool, right? Like, that's strong. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I saw the Rays guy definitely doubled down on it.
He should.
Yeah, and so he actually did make it. I don't have his quote in front of me, but he made it sound like he was sort of paying tribute. But if this is just all you have to do is just say it's a pop culture reference. This wouldn't be any different than if the Cardinals all did a hawk to it and collectively spat on the ground in unison after a big hit or something like that. Like, it's just a pop culture reference to something that's happening. It's an inside joke, even though, well, I guess it must be an inside joke because we're trying to figure out what it is. So us on the outside aren't, I can say I'm 100% sure of what it is, but I guess none of us are. So it still is inside as far as they're concerned. But yes, it's a Trump reference. Like, fine. That's not a political statement. They didn't sign up for this aspect of it. They just signed up to play baseball. So I understand why they're kind of being careful about it. But I mean, we can see what we can see. And the one thing that you mentioned it to your credit, and I should say this as well. The one thing that could absolutely just take a needle to my balloon is if this started before the Trump thing happened. All I've seen is that these videos started to circulate right after the Trump thing happened. It was, I think, in Atlanta. So that's the timeline that I have. If there's evidence out there otherwise that it started beforehand, then you know what? I got no leg to stand on. Fair enough. Then we could talk about how at East Carolina, Alec Burleson was this DJ with this nickname, which maybe he was. I'm not even saying that's untrue. I'm just saying there's a chance, a realistic chance, a very realistic chance, in my opinion, that they choreographed that and came up with that story as an alibi so that way they could get away with their joke, just like they pretended that the pepper grinder was actually about grinding pepper, which we all know it wasn't.
So you think it was straight up sexual, you're saying?
Yes.
Really? And I don't know about that.
Kat kind of hinted at it too. That happened on the radio. Okay. Where there was a moment where I'm like, Cam was always pushing back on that theory too. And then Kat was kind of like sarcastically like, no, they don't do that. What, a bunch of 25-year-old players? No.
But it's also
obviously don't have the audio right now.
Okay. But that's the opposite of the fight. I mean, your dude's doing that, which is why after Hawk Tua, when Bryce Harper did it at second base, I'm thinking, if you really think about what you're doing there as a dude, you probably shouldn't do that, although I get the reference.
But some guys think that's funny.
Okay, I get it. First of all,
just because you're not supposed to do it.
Right. No, I think it's all funny. It's all great. I really don't care. It's just something to talk about. Okay. How about Paul Skenes? Tell me, what are you? Are you 25? I forget. 25?
25. Yeah.
Yeah, 25. So, I mean, he's got to be the most exciting Pirate in your lifetime. I'm trying to think even who else would be close. And then when I was thinking about this, I wasn't here when Albert started, but I've been here since 2008. And the Cardinals, like Colby Rasmus was exciting, but then he didn't make the team at first, so it kind of lingered. But in my time, what's that?
I said Jordan Walker, same story.
Yeah, but even before him, like Carlos Martinez was really pumped up, but then he started in the bullpen. There was a ton of pub for Alex Reyes to come up. He also started in the bullpen. Oscar Taveras, RIP. There was ridiculous hype for him, ridiculous hype for Jordan Walker, but I don't think any of it is close to what Paul Skenes is for all of baseball because he's the number one young attraction in all of baseball. So he's got to be the most exciting Pirate since when? When do you think? Who?
Andrew McCutchen won an MVP in 2013.
Okay, but I'm talking about, I know, and that team was great. And that series versus the Cardinals, which I got to cover, was fantastic. But I'm talking about the excitement level for somebody coming up. Like, I don't remember all that talk and hype about McCutchen, anything like it is for Skenes.
Yeah, I mean, McCutchen was a first-round pick, but that's still, like, we can't name every first-round pick that ever got drafted. So that those are kind of local stories. Yeah, as far as like prospects go, definitely Paul Skenes is the best. He's eclipsed Garrett Cole. A lot of people are talking about Garrett Cole. I don't remember him being anywhere near Paul Skenes as far as the excitement. Now, Garrett Cole was a number 1 pick, so there was a lot of hype around him, and I'm pretty sure he had like a 2 RBI double or something his first start too at the plate back when pitchers used to hit. So Garrett Cole was definitely a big deal, but he was with the Pirates for like 4 years and only had 1 All-Star appearance. So I really don't think, and obviously that's good, but Paul Skenes is just on a complete other level as far as prospects go. The Pirates, that's another thing about the Pirates. A lot of their prospects have not turned out well. Kevin Newman was a bust. Cole Tucker was a huge bust. They have had a lot of prospects that have just not panned out whatsoever and not gone anywhere. So it's not just the fact that they don't sign anybody. They kind of had the perfect storm with a lot of young players really culminating at the same time in 2013. But like I said, I've been alive for 25 years. That shouldn't be the first time that that's happened, or the only time that that's happened basically in my lifetime. So they've had a lot of issues, and it's not just the spending. It's also that they don't really produce talent that well. And I wish there were more that come to mind than just Paul Skenes and Garrett Cole, because I know that they've had a lot of high draft picks. I just can't tell you who they were.
Even going back to when I was in college, I remember Brian Bullington. Brian Bullington was this big right-handed pitcher from Ball State who was he the number 1 pick, I think? Maybe in like 98, 99, 2000. There was a John Van Bunschoten. Was that Pirates also? I'll have to look that up.
Yeah,
okay.
Van Bunschoten.
He was a 2-way player. I think he was from a MAC school, maybe like
he
Kent
pitched
State
for us, but
but he was a really good 2-way player. I remember in college. Okay, so
Mac's
Cole,
pretty good with some baseball, huh?
Well, I mean, see, when I was coming up, and when I went to Bradley, I didn't really obviously play, but like the MVC, Missouri Valley Conference, was always full of really good pitching, and I feel like the MAC, they always developed a bunch of good hitters, it seemed like. And that's kind of big picture, but I feel like that was the case. This is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm not sure exactly how it is now. But, Cole, is it fair to say, so when you're on the radio here in St. Louis, do you really kind of dislike the Cardinals because you're a Pirates fan? Is it kind of playing to the audience and knowing it'll be good content if you're going against Cardinals fans or Cat, who's doing the games? Like, explain it to folks.
All right. I promise you this is true, even if people will doubt me. No matter what city I'm in, no matter who we're talking about, all it takes is one person to be on the other side of me for me to view them. In particular, if they're playing the role of the everybody on our team is good type fan, and that absolutely applies in Pittsburgh, because if you had to listen to some of the Kenny Pickett hype, people were calling him a top 10 quarterback, and I'm a Steelers fan, and they were calling him a top 10 quarterback heading into last season in Pittsburgh radio. And it was beyond frustrating to listen to. It does not take much for me to turn into a hater. It just takes somebody. It just takes the blind faith guy. It could be anything. It could be anybody for any team. Just the blind faith guy drives me nuts, especially when they have a microphone. And if anybody has seen Andrew Filipponi on Twitter in the Pittsburgh media space, he tweeted out before the game yesterday that Paul Skenes was going to throw a perfect game, just because he's that guy, and because he's figured it out, that the algorithm, he has enough followers to where it's just going to perpetuate. People in Pittsburgh hate Andrew Filipponi, so that's what it takes. I just need to find the blind faith fan in the sports media, and then I can just root against them. And it doesn't matter what team it is. Now, obviously, it directly translated here because I'm a Pirates fan, so I'm a fan of a division rival. I was never really concerned with that being any sort of threat to the St. Louis listener, because I don't think Cardinals fans find the Pirates very threatening. So if I were a Cubs fan, maybe they wouldn't have wanted to hear me. But in general, I think that just in radio, a general principle is that like the personality is going to be what it is above anything else. If they like my radio personality, they'll like me. If they don't, they won't. And then, we can kind of wrestle around with our favorite teams later. But I think that's kind of the number one priority. But yeah, I understand that I was a St. Louis, for sure, a Cardinals hater, if not an entire St. Louis hater. But I assure you that could have happened in any city for any team, even the teams I root for. All I got to do is find the blind faith guy, and that guy will drive me up a wall to no end.
Okay, so for me, I'm not a Cardinals fan. I always root for our local teams. I feel like if my kids get into the local teams, I'll probably become more a fan of these teams. But when I was working in TV, I always did want the teams to win because it was fun, especially playoff runs. Like you'd get to travel. Those Octobers for the Cardinals, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 were super fun. All the times for the Blues, 2019. But even before that, all those Ken Hitchcock teams were really good. And they usually kind of crapped out early, but like they'd play the Blackhawks. You'd get to travel. It was fun. So I always rooted for the St. Louis teams for that reason. But I have found myself, like last year, I hate to say it, folks, I'm just being honest. Because I'm now in basically the content business where really at the end of the day, I have to do what makes money, which is why I'm doing so much NASCAR stuff and not as much Cardinal stuff. But if the Cardinals were really bad like last year, I hate to say it, that was good for business. If the Cardinals continue to be good now, which I hope they do, I'm going to be all in on doing content, hopefully September as they push for the playoffs. And then I want the Cardinals to win the World Series. But overall, I don't want to say I don't care if the Cardinals win or lose because I kind of do. But for me, I would rather listen to somebody like that. Now, do you think you're with the Cardinals? Were you fair or were you overly a hater?
The only person I was borderline unfair to was Adam Wainwright.
Okay.
No, that was the only guy who I felt like that I was actually largely a John Mozeliak defender, especially when I first got here. Because I got here, keep in mind, in June 6th of 2022 was my first day at 590 The Fan. So the Cardinals, that was the year that they made the playoffs, lost to the Phillies, blew that series, yada, yada, yada. But they were in playoff contention the whole way through the season. And the amount of texts that we got just wanting to fire John Mozeliak during a season in which they were competing for the playoffs, I was like, are you guys not aware of how successful his tenure has been? And I know that Cardinals fans, to their credit, have high expectations. And so, crapping out in the first round of the playoffs every single year is not up to par for them. And I get that entirely. But even when they were winning, I was like, you want to fire him like right here and now in the middle of June in a year that might enter the playoffs? Like, what sense does that make? So John Mozeliak is somebody who I think gets treated, I don't want to say unfairly, because he's been around for a while. And so some people think he's just overstayed his welcome. And I kind of get that. So I don't want to say that Cardinals fans are being unfair. But as far as being like borderline cruel to the guy, like that's a guy who I've actually been defensive of. I obviously defended Ollie Marmol for the entirety of this season, if not last season, when it came down to the players not executing and him having little to no control over that. So I was very defensive of him. The people who I didn't defend when the Cardinals were losing were the players. And the only one who I was borderline unfair to, I think, was Adam Wainwright, which that kind of bleeds into like, is sports talk radio like actual sports coverage, or are we like kind of a comedy show that focused on sports? I think that we were a comedy show that focused on sports.
For sure.
So I think it was all kind of fair game. A little bit. I can probably be convinced that I was unfair to Adam Wainwright, but that's the only guy who I'll hear any arguments about. I was far more defensive of Mo and Marmol, who are public enemies 1 and 2 when it comes to Cardinals fans. So in that regard, I think I was rather defensive of those two.
Yeah, with Mo's first 10, 11 years were fantastic. I mean, there wasn't even a bad move. There wasn't a signing you could look at. I remember we always joked about Ty Wigginton was the worst signing. It's like, okay, if your worst signing is 2 years, I think it was 2 years and 5 or 10 million, whatever it is, that was for a decade. That's the only thing you could point to. But then if you start talking about Leak and Fowler and the Carpenter extension, the bad trades. Yeah, overall, John Mozeliak has been really good. The last 5 to 8 years, not nearly as good as the first decade. And I think, to me, it wasn't just about the way that the Cardinals fell apart last year. It's also the minor league system, right? It's like this year. Now, give Palante credit, but for a while there wasn't anybody they could even go to in the minors to give him a start, right? There was nobody that they had trust in. They're bouncing back and forth. Libator. So again, give Palante a lot of credit. But back in the day when the Cardinals were good, there was a freaking pipeline of freaking pitchers, man. Whoever it was, Lance Lynn, Michael Wacha, Carlos Martinez, Shelby Miller, Trevor Rosenthal, Kevin Seagrass, Seth Maness. Like, they just churned these dudes out from AA, AAA to the majors, and they would contribute. And that has not been the case the last couple of years.
And I get that. And like I said, Cardinals fans have every reason to have very high expectations for themselves. And so I'm not going to fault them. Like, aside from the Yankees, I think the Cardinals have won the second most World Series ever. Now, I don't particularly care about what happened in the 1930s and 40s, but hey, you got a lot of tradition here, and the fans have high expectations. I'm seldomly going to fault a fan base for having high expectations unless you're just literally one of the worst organizations in sports. So, Blue Jackets fans are going to love me when I get there and talk about a team that
have you announced that yet?
No. But,
okay, let's get into that. Let's get into that real quick, because I jumped ahead, but the reason I find this hilarious is because here you were in St. Louis. Were you here for like 2.5, 3 years? How long was it?
2 years and a month.
Okay, so 2 years. 2 years, you were kind of the anti-Cardinals guy. And tell people what you're doing now, because I've always found it hilarious. And I'm an Ohio State fan. It's really the only team I care about. But you went to Ohio State, don't like Ohio State football. You like Notre Dame football. And I think you can't say exactly which place you're going, but as you said, you're going to Columbus to work in sports media. So are you going to be the anti-Buckeyes fan in Columbus? Because that would be freaking awesome.
No. Because, well, I mean, again, if I hear a bunch of people just praising the team even when they deserve to be criticized, then yeah, I guess. But no, I mean, Ohio State, they lose one game a year. And so there's really only like one time to pounce, quote unquote. But, and then trust me, if they lose, I'm not going to be the only one just lambasting them on the radio. Other people will be too, and other people have, and people at that station have total free reign to just speak their mind. So that's all good and well. But no, it's a lot different, I think. And it's also just different in football coverage versus baseball coverage, because in baseball, and this was kind of my concern coming to St. Louis, is that how are we supposed to have a big takeaway from what happened when we have 162 of these things? And of course, here we go. But this is a little bit different, okay? Because we're talking about a game last night where the trade deadline is in a week and playoff implications are on the line, and the Pirates are about to play 7 different playoff teams 7 times in a row. So this is a little bit different. But the baseball coverage versus football coverage, I was kind of concerned about how to kind of deal with baseball and kind of when to pick your spots as far as which games and which series are important, which ones aren't. And like, are we supposed to treat every game like it's do or die on the radio at baseball? And football, it is a little bit different. Now,
in St. Louis, you can, though. You can do that with the Cardinals. Probably, honestly, St. Louis might be one of the only markets you can talk all day long about the Cardinals.
I get it, but what I'm saying is, are your takes fabricated, or are they? And I guess in any sports media, certainly sports radio sense, the takes are going to be a little bit exaggerated and a little bit fabricated, just because when you're talking on a microphone, you get on a roll and the momentum kind of avalanches itself. So you may not have even intended to have this, scorched earth segment, but you just started the segment and you kind of found it as you went along. And now all of a sudden you're saying that game 17 in April is a must-win game or something like that. So you do kind of find it as you go. And I get that. That's radio anywhere. But it's going to be different in football, because football, the stakes are way higher. You lose once, you're done, especially there. You want to talk about the expectations for Cardinals fans here, the expectations for Ohio State fans. They have, especially this season, after what they just did in the transfer portal, the expectations are sky high. But yes, the general news, and I cannot be super specific, although I will be able to be super specific in like 2 days. My days in St. Louis are numbered. as I will be moving back to Columbus, Ohio, again to work in some sort of media coverage of sports. Now I'll be more specific about that soon, but I give it about a week and I'll be back home in the land of Charlie's sister. She lives there too.
That's right. I shouldn't say love it because we do miss you. We will miss you, but it's good for your career. And with the way things happen at 590, if 590 wouldn't have shut down, maybe you stay here for a long time. But this happens in the biz, as they say. This live stream brought to you by Triad Bank, St. Louis Equipment, Corner Butcher. We do have super thanks. I'm gonna share this revenue with Cole. And by the way, when you do the live stream for advertising, it says you can have conservative. When I say conservative, I mean not a lot. So you can do conservative, balanced, or aggressive. Now, normally I do as many ads as possible, but I said, you know what? For this live stream, I'm going to do balance. So folks watching right now, I could have been aggressive and had even more ads, but I tried to think about your viewing pleasure, and I did a balanced amount of ads. Now, on the
Ken appreciates it.
Yeah, Ken's my guy. Ken's one of our premium members here. Him and G2Z, who lives in the Netherlands. Ken lives in Poplar Bluff, although I don't want to give away his address. Not that I know it. But, is it true? Are you going to do a college football podcast with Brendan Schaefer? Mavt asked that on the chat.
We've talked about that a lot, and it's kind of just a thing that we like when we bring it up. It's just like a general understanding, like, oh yeah, we're doing it. We don't have like a name for it. We haven't talked about it. We don't know a schedule. We don't know any of that stuff. But we have mutual interest in talking college football, and that's something that I really do enjoy about St. Louis, particularly at this point in time, is that the interest in college football has increased drastically. In Missouri football, they're obviously the reason for that, but that is something that I was really looking forward to, was going to be Monday mornings on the radio after Mizzou football weekends. I am upset about that we're not going to get to have that, but the football season, Brendan and I do want to work together. And actually, you know what? The station shutting down actually happened at the absolute best time possible. And I'll give you the story. So again, can't say where, but I will in a couple of days. So the job that
Can you say it's radio? Can you say it's a radio station?
Yeah, sure. It's a radio station
in Columbus, Ohio.
We'll say which one, okay. But you do like 2 Google searches, you can kind of math it out. But so the job is initially part-time with the expectation, and I didn't even necessarily have this expectation, but it's been explained to me that there is room to grow, and they like promoting from within, and they like young talent who is aspirational. And so there is room to go from within. So at the time of the interview, I think I actually had the interview scheduled while 590 was still live. And so my plan initially was I was just going to go through the interview process just to become a name and a face that they knew, because to my knowledge, they didn't even have, and they still don't have, full-time availability. And so I'm just going to kind of like network a little bit, become someone they're familiar with, kind of cherry pick a few things to store away in the back of my mind for when they do have a full-time availability. Then I am, going to try to be the best candidate I can be based off the information that I got from this round of interviews. So then I have the interview scheduled. The interview took place July 5th. So literally a week after the station closed. So that was my attitude heading into that interview. Then the station shut down. And so that completely derailed my original plan. And I treated that interview with a lot more urgency heading into it. And so knowing what I know now, I may not have taken that job. I may not have left a full-time job for a part-time job just because of geography. So could you imagine a situation where I turn them down and I say, hey, I just don't think it makes sense for me to leave a full-time job for a part-time job, even though there could be full-time availability in the near future. I could work toward that. I just don't know if it makes sense right now. And then boom, 590 shuts down. Like, that would have been a doomsday scenario. So having my mind kind of made up for me worked out perfectly for me in this case.
Love it. I was just checking. I might have accidentally put aggressive ads on, to be honest with you. I was just checking it. And if I did, I didn't even mean to. But you know what? Nobody on the chat is actually complaining about that. By the way, so I agree with you. The funny thing is like, as I stopped doing radio full time the last 6 months or so, when I left Hot Take Central full time, I did pay less attention to sports. I'm excited about Mizzou football being good this year, but I wonder, without having the radio to talk about it, I don't know if I'll really lock in and watch every game. We should do stuff like this, though. And that's the thing. Like, if people like it on the channel and if it makes some money, and that's the other thing. Anybody who's watching, when you ask about, like, hey, getting Kat, Cam, Matt, Brendan, everybody on, like, I would love, honestly, anytime, I would love to have a deal where 5 people are on. But at the end of the day, like, everybody's time is valuable. And like, to me, I don't think you can really make it make sense from a financial standpoint unless it's 2 people, right? Like, unless you have, like, we got sponsors here, and all that. But I mean, like, to have a show with 3 or 4 people, like, you need some pretty big sponsorship money to make it worth our while. And by the way, I would do a show right now with all those guys, but like, is everybody going to get, $7 for an hour? Right. So like, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. I think everybody would still like to work together. I would like to do like just random shows like this. Like, even though you're going to be in Columbus, if there's a big game, let's say something happens with the Pirates, Cardinals. I don't know if you'll pay attention to the Cardinals, but like, I want to do just more random live streams and kind of random shows also around big events like, college football playoffs, Super Bowls, things like that. Because I'm not actually watching that much sports unless it's kind of the big time stuff. I've become a casual. I hate to say that. Besides NASCAR, which I follow nonstop, to be fair.
Yeah, man. And you were putting a lot of Hot Take Central content on this YouTube channel. So I assume that a lot of your YouTube followers, although they may not be 590 listeners, they are still familiar with who I am or who everybody else is on Hot Take Central. So yeah, and look, you need off-season content because are you going to do a different video on every single pitching free agent there ever is and break down his velocity on this pitch and that pitch and his changeup and his probably not. And that probably wouldn't be fun, to be completely honest with you. So yeah, man, if you ever, now that I know how to use this thing, because I had to update my Google Chrome and we're all good now. Yeah. For some reason, my microphone and my camera weren't working, so we were a few minutes late. I apologize for that. But it's smooth sailing now, so I'm game for anything. And I also think that's pretty cool because it enables more combinations for you than just having the same cast members all the time. You can kind of do a little rotation as you want and kind of get different personalities. So just from your perspective, that'd probably be more fun to be able to rotate through people. Sure.
And George Kellerman says, just my opinion, I'll be more interested if you talk about the sports instead of talking about sports. And I agree. So you have to also critique us when we are stupid, or I am. So, okay, I agree with that. We talked a lot about the business of talking about sports and radio and all that. How about the Cardinals trade deadline? We've had some folks ask about that as well. I think it's pretty interesting because if you'd have asked a month or two ago, you're like, easy, add a starter. But now Palante's been so good, and maybe you're like this, like there's no way they're going to get rid of any of these other guys, these veterans, Lance Lynn, whoever it is, if it's not an injury. Like, Palante is pitching so well. I mean, could you make a case that if you get a really good pitcher, Palante as a long man in the pen helps you there? But I think Palante is actually better as a starter. You can always load up on bullpen guys. What do you think the Cardinals should do, can do? I don't know this year what they're going to do. I would have said starting pitcher easy a month ago, but now it's kind of a tough call.
Well, you can just stock up arms and just use them whenever someone's having a bad day. Like, that's just good to have as many guys as possible. And I know that that's a very mundane take because everybody in baseball kind of agrees with that. But yeah, you literally can't have too many arms. And so we could see maybe not necessarily like a John Lester and Jay Happ type trade deadline, but maybe even more bullpen arms. Just, you never know when it's going to be somebody's bad day on the mound. And so it's just good to be as prepared as possible for that. And gosh, I don't even know how the roster still expand to September, right? What do they expand out to? Do we know the number?
I feel like nowadays they just add a couple people. Like, back in the day, you'd have 10, 15 dudes.
You would have.
Is it only a few?
Damn near the 40-man roster come up. But
it was too many back in the day. I should
yeah,
know
so
that.
I don't know what it's at now, but
I don't.
at some point being, at some point the roster is going to expand, which allows you to get even deeper into your bullpen. So I think that, and John Mosey, like I said, that he said that you can never have too much pitching. And he also, I didn't like what he did. It was an interview that he did with the Cat, I think at a pregame here within the past couple weeks. Cat was asking about the trade deadline, and he kind of laid out the cushions for a very soft landing on a trade deadline. And
Sure.
it's kind of talking about how, I think this is actually going to be a rather disappointing trade deadline for a lot of fan bases because he said that it's not going to be competitive because there are so many teams going after such few assets.
Yeah.
That's the definition of competition. All right. There are a lot more people than there is water at the watering hole. So there's going to be competition. Now, there aren't going to be many people who are big game hunting, and evidently the Cardinals probably aren't going to be one of them, but somebody will be. Everybody's talking about Tarek Skubal, who's got 2.5 years of club control, is one of the best pitchers in the American League right now with the Detroit Tigers. If somebody makes a move on him and people in Detroit are wanting the Tigers to move on from him because they think that they can get an absolute haul for him, then if somebody gets him, then that's a big fish in the pond. Garrett Crochet, big fish in the pond. Luis Robert Jr., big fish in the pond. Not Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker should have been an all-star. He's got like the 6th best OPS or something like that in Major League Baseball. Didn't even make the all-star team with the A's. So there are some guys out there that will be big pieces that will turn heads. But so for John Mozeliak to say that it's not going to be that competitive because there are a lot of teams going after not that many guys. I mean, okay, so you're not going to be competitive, but other teams will be because other teams are going to be calling those teams, the White Sox, the A's, the Tigers, those teams out of contention, asking for those guys. And so I think that was kind of, putting together a nice soft landing when they bring it together, probably just like a Jonathan Broxton and a Steve Cishek like reliever combo or something like that. And Cardinals fans are like, who are these guys that we just got? And they're just like, decently good relievers. I think that's kind of what he's laying the ground floor for.
Yeah, I'm okay with him actually setting the bar low because in the past, I think as an organization, it never makes sense to say too much and to get people's expectations up. For a while there, they didn't do anything at the deadline for about 3 years. I feel like at the end of Matheny, beginning of Schilt, then they went out. They needed so much pitching the last 3 deadlines before last year when they had to sell everybody off. But I mean, I'm talking about the Haps, the Lesters, the LeBlancs, the Quintanas, the Montgomerys. So I guess it was the 2 seasons before. So it was 21, 22. But the guy that I think makes perfect sense, and this is before Palante has started to pitch really well, but like Eric Fetty is like your perfect Cardinal. He just is. Like when you say Eric Fetty, he's a Cardinal. I mean, his numbers are freaking good, man. 2.98 ERA. Now his FIP is 3.67. Doesn't strike out a ton of dudes. 104 strikeouts in 117 and 2/3 innings. Comes back from Korea. What, a 2-year deal? I believe it's $15 million. So you get him for next year. He's 31 years old. He just feels like a Cardinal. Now, I do think you have to give up a pretty good amount because that's a pretty dang good pitcher, 1.5 years of control on a very manageable contract. But like, to me, in the same way that Sonny Gray felt like a Cardinal, if the Cardinals are going to make a deal, Eric Fetty feels like the Cardinal. But everybody else is going to want him too.
And you were talking about what they would have to give up. And that's actually something that I think is different in Cardinals talk radio than probably a lot of other teams in a lot of different cities, because a lot of other major league cities have NFL teams. And if you have an NFL team, you're an NFL city. You're a football city. And so I think that in St. Louis, more than other cities, you are probably more aware of what's going on in the minor leagues because that feeds right into the majors, obviously. And so I think that's something that people in St. Louis pay more attention to and get more attached to prospects. So the trade deadline talk is always interesting to me in St. Louis, how attached certain people get to certain prospects. Whereas I spent most of my life not caring at all about what takes place in the minor leagues because I haven't seen a lick of it. I don't watch minor league baseball. I am not as smart as Kyle Reese. I'll tell you that right now.
Whoa.
So, yeah, hot take. But I've always been somebody who kind of came to St. Louis with the attitude of like, if I haven't seen him in the major leagues, like I have no idea what he is, just because he balls against AA players and AAA players, I'm supposed to expect that he's going to come to the major leagues and just be a stud. I mean, if he's Paul Skenes, yeah, sure. But it is my general philosophy. I have a strong bias in favor of the major leagues, so I'd be willing to cut bait with almost anybody in the minor leagues. Now, obviously, the people who are in charge have a lot more information on that than I do.
Tink Hens?
Yeah, and I saw somebody on Twitter last night, and I couldn't even. I was doom scrolling so hard after that Pirates Cardinals games. I couldn't even help myself, to be honest with you. I saw somebody championing the draft class from. I think they were championing Randy Flores for the draft class, and I want to say 2020, where they're talking about COVID, Jordan Walker, and I think it was the
Mason Wynn, Burleson.
Yes, Tink. And they threw Tink Henson there, attributing Randy Flores and all of his success to that draft class, or, a part of his success to that draft class, because obviously Alec Burleson had a big hit last night, so they're celebrating him and saying the importance of that draft class. Tink Hens hasn't pitched in AAA yet. Okay, and we're already celebrating him as being a part of one of the best draft classes that the Cardinals have had in recent history.
Well, he hasn't even pitched in Memphis. I mean, Jordan Walker still could be, we hope, still will be good, although the longer it goes, you kind of wonder. But Tink Hens is a big prospect.
So long since Jordan Walker got sent down. I can't believe.
No, I know. Listen, I'm saying, like, I have my questions now if he's ever going to reach that type of potential. But let's see. Tink Hens, he was Baseball America, 84th best prospect entering this year. Major League Baseball, 64th. Baseball Prospectus, 54th. So he's a pretty big prospect. That's fair to say. And his numbers this year, AA, 3.29 ERA. He's got 73 strikeouts in 54 and 2/3 innings. So pretty impressive there. But he is small in stature. He's kind of wispy, so you wonder. But then you could say, he could be like Pedro Martinez. Everybody says he could be Pedro.
Or Fernando Valenzuela. He was short, right?
But he was fat, though. All due respect, Fernando.
All fat pitchers are successful, especially in PNC Park on July 23rd, 2024, apparently. But look, if you get somebody back who has, yes. Did you see Frank's tweet too about Lance Lynn not getting any acknowledgement for the Pirates crowd, yet the Cardinals fans will do more for a guy who hit 240 for him coming back in a reunion at Busch Stadium?
That's true. Laugh. By the way, I was at the gym last night when that happened, so I'm listening to John Rooney and Mike Claiborne, and they said the same thing, and Rooney was kind of fired up. He's like, the Cardinal fans gave Paul Skenes a freaking standing ovation at Busch Stadium.
What?
And the Pirates won't even acknowledge the two. They said before the game, apparently. This is according to the radio broadcast I was listening to last night. They said before the game that they would not acknowledge the 2,000 strikeouts. And also, was it Goldschmidt that needed 3 hits for 2,000 hits, I think? They also would not acknowledge that. So Pirates fans, it's not the fans' fault. It's actually the organization's fault, okay? They suck, not the fans. Go ahead.
That is such an inferiority complex type attitude to get upset about that. Lance Lynn and Paul Goldschmidt. Paul Goldschmidt, by the way, I had to look this up yesterday because we got to like the 5-6 hole in the Cardinals lineup. I'm like, wow, Paul Goldschmidt got benched. I'm like, wow, I'm surprised by that because this is a pretty big series and they lost the first game of the series. Why are you benching in the second game of the series? And then eventually got to the 7th hole. And I'm like, oh, Paul Goldschmidt's actually playing. He's just that far down in the lineup because he's been horrible this year. It's been 2 months of consistent, if you want to put the positive spin on this. Paul Goldschmidt's been very consistent this year. He has consistently pinballed between 225 and 235 on the batting average and an OPS somewhere considerably below 700. So
it's 84. Yeah. His OPS plus is 84 right now. I just looked it up. That
was shocking to me. And even as somebody who predicted Paul Goldschmidt to have a pretty disappointing year, this has been bad. For Oli Marmol, who has given him and Arenado every reason to bat in the top 5 of the order this year, I was shocked when I saw that he was batting 7th. And so I seriously, my first instinct was that he must have gotten benched if hasn't hit yet. But anyway, that's a little bit of an aside. So,
but hold on, real quick.
Forget what we were even talking about.
Well, no, we were talking about Tink Hens. No, I agree with you though. For a while there, when they dropped Arenado in the lineup instead of Goldie, I'm like, no, it should be the opposite. You should drop Goldie and not Arenado if you're just looking at numbers.
Yeah, and I don't know, names, accolades, contracts. That's a question that if we had ever gotten Ollie Marmol on the show, that's a question I would have asked mid-season because, and I guess we can say this now because who cares? But Kat told us that he had floated the idea to Ollie of coming on Hot Take Central, and Ollie seemed game for it. So,
Yeah.
and I assumed that meant in season because I doubt that Kat was booking him like 6 months in advance until the off season. And my question would have been, if Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, if you stripped away their contracts and their monetary value, would they be batting in the same spot of the order that they are? And the answer should have been no, because their numbers did not justify them being top 5 in the lineup because they weren't top 5 hitters. But anyway, about the Pirates fans and the Cardinals fans, that is, I'm sorry, that's such a loser attitude. I mean, we stood. It is. Stop it. We stood for Paul Skenes, so shouldn't you stand for Lance Lynn and Paul Goldschmidt?
Best fans in baseball heaven. Your fans suck.
The reason that they're the best fans of baseball and the reason that they are, well, I guess a part of the reason that they're the best fans of baseball and a part of the reason that it's baseball heaven is because the NFL doesn't love you back. And that because if you were an NFL town, and that goes back to before the Rams got here. If the St. Louis football Cardinals were here through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and all the way through, and it wasn't kind of like breaking off and then had a 20-year gap, and then the Rams come, and the Rams are here for 20 years, and they leave. If the NFL weren't hitting it and quitting it with St. Louis, this would be an NFL city. All right? And so all that B-fib stuff, that's because almost, if not all, I guess Toronto would be an exception. Maybe there are other exceptions. St. Louis is one of the only cities in America that has a baseball team. Actually, it probably is the only city in America because Toronto's in Canada that has a baseball team and not a football team. And so that absolutely affects the attitude with all this stuff. And so, I mean, that's just so small towny. Why aren't they going to stand for Lance Lynn? Okay, well, let me ask you this. So Lance Lynn gets 2,000.
They don't have to stand for it. The Pittsburgh announcing team at the park could acknowledge it on the jumbotron or whatever.
Okay, well, you know how I feel about this, about numbers that end in 0 not being more important than numbers that don't end in 0. So let me math this out for you. Lance Lynn eclipsed 2,000 strikeouts last night. I assume at some point later on in the season that he's going to get strikeout number. Let's just make up a number, 2,035. And let's say he does that. I'm freezing on my camera, but I hope I'm not freezing on yours.
It's all good.
But let's just say that happens in an opposing ballpark. Now, 2,035 strikeouts is better than 2,000 strikeouts. Are you also going to complain that the opposing fans didn't acknowledge, or the opposing organization didn't acknowledge strikeout number 2,035, which should be more important than strikeout number 2,000?
No. And round numbers matter a little bit. It's fun. Long season.
Easy to read.
Long season, you need little stupid stuff like that.
I get it, but my overarching point is Lance Lynn and Paul Goldschmidt both have done nothing for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They do not owe those two anything. And the fans should not be appreciative that they eclipsed a certain milestone against their own team. So why should Pirates fans care about that worth a damn unless maybe you break a record, okay? If Aaron Judge hits home run number 62 in your ballpark, congratulations. You just saw a record broken in the American League. So, Toronto Blue Jays fans, maybe they stood, even against the division rival, Blue Jays fans may have stood up, may have clapped, they may have acknowledged on the scoreboard. That's like a record-breaking moment. This is just a little nicety to put Lance Lynn in 6th place in active strikeout leaders. That's not that significant as far as opposing fans. If the Cardinals fans like it, sure, because they're Cardinals fans. Neither of those two have done anything for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So why should their fans care? And let's not act. And see, this is where I push back a little bit about the idea that I kind of bought the whole tuna thing of like, is St. Louis really a baseball town or is it a football town?
Oh, it's 100% baseball. Come on.
But
not even
St. Louis is a St. Louis sports town.
No, it is a baseball town. It is the best baseball town in America. That is 100% true.
Hey, there was we were on the air with me as a part of it for 14 months on Hot Take Central. We talked a lot of football that had nothing to do with St. Louis or Mizzou, a lot more than we did baseball that didn't have to do with St. Louis. The Cardinals had off days. We weren't talking about what happened in the Yankees-Red Sox game last night on the radio. We were talking about Cardinals
bigger.
baseball.
NFL and college football, it's an easy watch. By the way, I don't mean to cut you off. I do have to go because I have this golf lesson, my first ever golf lesson. Let's end on this.
I have lunch with Brad Straubinger that you were invited to and you couldn't go.
Okay. Griffin Kipper says round numbers matter almost as much as youth sports matter. How about that, Cole? Take that. Brought to you by Triad Bank, St. Louis Equipment, St. Louis Lawn Care, Corner Butcher, all that. Cole, thank you very much. This was fun. We'll do it again. Good luck in Columbus at the radio station. You can't tell us where you're going. Thank you to everybody for jumping in the comments. I'm going to do more of these. We'll do them next week for the trade deadline. We'll do it as the Cardinals get towards the playoffs. We'll have Cole back on. Cole, love you, buddy. Good luck. We'll see you, man.
Anytime you need me. I had a lot of fun. So anytime you need me, I'm serious. I'm game. So just send a text. We'll work out a time, and we'll shoot the breeze about whatever you want.
All right.
Radio, baseball, football, I don't care. So we'll have a good time.
All right. See you, buddy. Bye, everybody.
Later.
End stream. Boom. End stream. Boom.